Welcome to the Veterinary Rehabilitation Podcast, where we aim to help fellow veterinary rehab therapists increase their knowledge and elevate their practice. I'm Megan Kelly.
And I'm Anae Lloyd. Together, we bring you the latest insights, research, and information in the field of veterinary rehabilitation.
This podcast is brought to you by Onlinepethealth, a leading continuing education membership for veterinary rehabilitation therapists. With Onlinepethealth, you'll have access to a wide range of online resources to help you stay up to date with the latest techniques, advances, and trends in the industry.
Our podcast features in-depth conversations with leading experts in veterinary rehabilitation. They share their own experiences and knowledge to help you improve your practice. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out in the field, our goal is to provide you with the tools and the insights you need to succeed.
So join us as we explore the exciting world of veterinary rehabilitation and help you take your practice to the next level. Hey vet rehabbers, in this episode I chat with Donna about the heartfelt inspiration behind her book, which chronicles her journey with her dog Logan. Donna shares how the process of writing was deeply cathartic, allowing her to express her thoughts and emotions. And once her story was on paper, she felt compelled to share it in a book, hoping others could learn and find comfort from her experience. Donna also dives into the challenges she faced during the writing process and the incredible feeling of achievement of getting her book published. Today, I'd like to say a huge thank you to Tanri from Tanri Vet Physio. Thanks for the shout out on Instagram about the Veterinary Rehabilitation Podcast. Tanri, please reach out to me at megan@onlinepethealth.com. I'd love to gift you a limited edition veterinary rehabilitation mug. A quick word from our sponsors. Nada first developed her courses at the Colorado State University, where she started the Medical Acupuncture for Veterinarian Certificate program in 1998. In so doing, Dr. Robinson developed a science-based platform for veterinary acupuncture, the first of its kind. Today, Curacle Vet offers a comprehensive curriculum in integrative medicine with a rational, evidence-supported foundation. The courses they have include medical acupuncture, photomedicine, botanical medicine, medical massage, and integrative rehabilitation. You can discover Curacle Vet at curacle.org. Right, over to my chat with Donna. Hey Donna, thank you so much for joining me.
Hi Meg, thank you so much for having me. It's really exciting and I'm really happy to be here.
It's so crazy because Donna and I were at the IAVRPT conference. So like it really feels like just the other day, but it was like I think 3 weeks ago from the time that we're recording now. And it was so awesome because I got to get a whole book signed, basically a signed copy of her amazing book, which we're here to chat to about today. So thank you, Donna. I haven't had a chance to read all of it yet, but yeah, I'm really, really excited to have this. So yeah, why don't you tell us about yourself, first of all, for those that don't know you, and then what inspired you to write this book, The Best Goodbye?
Yeah, and certainly don't apologize for taking your time to read it because you've definitely got to be in the right headspace for it. So yeah, it is an emotional journey for sure. So my backstory is that I'm a veterinary nurse and a animal physio. I've actually been doing them for nursing for over 20 years and physio is coming up for 20 years. So it's been a long time, and I have throughout that time obviously had to say goodbye to many animals in my life personally, and also helping others to say goodbye to theirs. And particularly with physio, you really get a connection with those patients as well. So every time I lose a patient now, I spend a long time with each of my patients, and some of them for 10 years and something like that. And so you end up really grieving that loss as well. But the one that obviously was the really big kick in the guts for me was when I lost my boy Logan, and he had been with me literally from the start of my career. So he has been my world and rock throughout my training and everything. I got him when I was training. He literally is the reason why I'm a physio, and I put that all down to him. It's not all down to him, but I put it all down to him. And when I lost him, I was grieving unbelievably. And it's not unbelievable at all to anyone who's lost a dog, but it, to yourself, you feel like, come on, this is, crazy, pull yourself together, all those awful things that I was saying to myself. And 2 years after losing him, or nearly 2 years, I decided that actually, why am I telling myself off? I won't be the only person who's still feeling grief and loss. So I had a massive, overwhelming feeling in my gut. I absolutely had to do something to get rid of that feeling. And so I decided to put pen to paper. I sat there at midnight and through the night writing notes because I was like, I just had to get it down, so I wasn't going to be able to sleep. And then the next day I started writing, and a month later my book was here. And then I felt, you know what, that was amazing. I cried a lot writing it, very cathartic. And I thought, you know what, I need to share this. If it helps just one person, that would be amazing. And I'm very proud to say I've now helped a lot of people. So I couldn't be more proud of taking the time to do that.
Yeah, and I think as vet rehab therapists, I think it's such a great resource to have, to be able to give to clients or share with clients or let them know that there is this book available. Because if you think about it, there's so many of our clients that are walking this path for quite a long time. They're trying to make decisions, they don't really sure. And to prepare them, this is a great resource for them. So thank you for taking the time and putting that all down. For those that are listening, when I do these podcasts, we don't actually obviously do them on the day. They're recordings before the time. And I just wanted to share something with you that we actually were supposed to record this about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I was going through a really difficult time and grief and loss because my daughter's pony was sick and we were about to put him down. And I think it was like half an hour before our recording was supposed to happen, I phoned Donna and I was just like, Donna, I can't do this. I can't talk about this topic right now because I'm just in this really, really bad place, and I'm just, yeah, I'm grieving so badly right now because I know what's happening. Even though we were thinking at that time he potentially might be okay, but I think deep down I actually knew what was going to happen. And so, yeah, now a few weeks, a little bit later, I'm still a bit sad. And even as I'm talking now, I'm a bit teary about it. But this is the kind of thing, like you say, even after 2 years, you just, sometimes people say time makes it easier, but sometimes it actually doesn't. And I think that us as therapists, we need to be able to help ourselves in these situations because a lot of us will be going through this, whether it's our own pets or whether it's a patient that we've cared for and loved. But to be able to support our clients through this, I think is so important.
It absolutely is. I mean, one of the things you've just touched on there is pre-grief, which I most definitely go through in this book because we all know that it's coming. And so we get that emotional state before it even happens, which obviously if your situation, your pony was poorly, which is not necessarily something you expected at all. But certainly as they get older, you know that that's the inevitable that's coming and you do start grieving in advance. So you don't, it's not even about necessarily the after, it's also the before. And in terms of, it being a good preparation tool, that's exactly what I thought. I thought this was good because it helps you to feel it's okay to be prepared. It's okay to get prepared and then how to prepare. It's not the be all and end all. It doesn't, I'm not saying it's an exhaustive list of exactly what everybody should do, but it's just ideas. Like there's literally a 17-point list in the back of things that I did to help myself prepare and things that you could do to help yourself prepare, which is great for owners. But you know what? I've actually found that loads of my clients have bought it. Just some of them just want it on the shelf, just for in case. They don't necessarily even want to read it. And loads of them have bought it also for on the shelf, just in case, even after they've lost their ones, because they don't know if they want to read it either from the after perspective. And loads of them have read it, and they have read it, and they've read it having lost their dog, and they've actually found a huge amount of relief in reading it even though they've already lost their dog, just because they can feel that camaraderie, less alone, feel like actually their journey is reflected in other people. And I've had so many strangers messaging me to say thank you for this book, which has been really surprising. And also clients, and like I say, clients obviously are the biggest people that have bought this, but it's not only clients at all. I mean, I've sold quite a lot of books now, which is I'm quite proud of. I've had messages from clients, like one of them, she messaged me, she said, "Oh my God, Donna, I knew you were an amazing person, but I had no idea how amazing. I'm so glad to know you. Thank you so much. And if you ever anything you need, or from me or my husband, we're going to be here for you because you're just amazing." And I was like, oh wow, I hadn't expected that at all. Yeah. But she was sharing the fact that ultimately I very much bear my everything in this book and tell people literally. It did put me pretty on edge writing it because, well, to bring it out, to be honest, writing it was fine. That was for me. But actually to put it out there, I was like, well, this is really like pulling your pants down in public. And if this, people don't like it, then that's a personal attack now. But luckily everybody loves it, and you know, I gave my world to that dog, and so you know, as we all do, and so sharing all of that is so important. And like I say, it's reflected in all of, because we're all our people, you know, we're all animal lovers together, so you know, we're all that type of person, and so it is nice to share that.
Yeah, isn't it amazing to have such an impact internationally from something that you've experienced, that you've shared? And I think that, you know, the thing is about being so real and authentic is that you're so relatable, you know. So, and the people read it and they're like, oh my gosh, like this is exactly how I was, or this is how I am right now. And that gives them comfort.
It really does. And, you know, it's funny, isn't it? Because you just think, oh, you know, you must be the only person in the whole wide world to think all these thoughts. And you're not. And I use the word whole wide world because exactly that, you know, globally, we all love. It's as simple as that. And we may be cultural differences, but ultimately the same thing comes down. We get a connection and we love, and it's that simple. And, you know, there's so many times throughout my life that I've made choices where I think, oh, people might be laughing at me. But it turns out, you know, they're not laughing at me. They're laughing at the situation. They're laughing at the fact they didn't think of it first. They're laughing at the unique thoughts, if you sort of mean. So where I'm going with that is that, like, when I got my stair lift and I did the stair lift for my dog, that was the best thing I ever did. I'm so proud of it. My stair lift all these years on is still there, and it will be there forever, because now that's it. My house has a stair lift for my dogs that are aging, and that is it. And I'm so proud of that. But yeah, loads of people laughed at me. I mean, when I was thinking about moving house and I had people come around to try and look at the house and, like, for buying or whatever, they were like, can you take the stair lift out? You can't sell a house with a stair lift. I was like, no, it's a dog house. I mean, I've got so many interventions in my house. It's clearly a dog house. Get over it. And there were, like, those were not my people. That's the thing.
Yeah.
They were not my people. So that was okay. And all the people that are my people were like, oh my God, you've got a stair lift. That's amazing. Can you tell me how? You know, and that's what, those are my people, and that's fine. And it was the same with the buggy. And I got the dog buggy. Loads of people in the UK are like, oh my God, I can't get a buggy for my dog. That's so embarrassing. I'm like, why? I guarantee they are not laughing at you. They're laughing because of the situation that you've now inspired their thoughts, and they wish they got one. And every single person I've ever had, like, laugh at me, I found a nice way to ask, you know, what are they laughing at? You know, obviously you can't just, what are you laughing at? But I found a nice way. And they genuinely have all been like, I wish I had that for my dog. I just can't believe I didn't even think of that. And so, you know, these things are life-changing. And so, you know, we really have got a lot more unity out there than we realize is the point. And this book has just shown me how much we are so together in those thoughts. And, you know, loss is just horrendous for all of us all together. And, you know, yes, you'll experience different waves of it. You know, 5 minutes later, you feel fine. 10 minutes later, you feel terrible. 4 days later, you feel fine. 8 days later, you feel terrible. There's no rhyme nor reason. You can't even think what triggers it. All of a sudden it'd be a random smell or a bird tweet that just happened to spark some crazy memory. And then you're right back in that moment again. And that's the same for all of us. And that's what we need to remember, that it's okay to have those moments. And, you know, frankly, I think that if you don't get that touched by a being, I don't know who you are. So yeah, it's important.
Yeah, I think you're right. We're all the same. You know, our animals are truly one of our family. So for us, that loss is like losing a family member. One of the things you're saying about the buggy actually just reminded me of something. I used to have a little dog called Mia, and she had bilateral forelimb sort of deformities. And over time, she was only able to walk on her back legs. And so it was really difficult for her to go for walks. And so I bought this pram. It was actually a dog pram, but it was pink. And she used to sit inside, but she used to sit on her bum up, you know, with her little legs like this, and her tongue used to hang out. And I used to push her around when I used to the dog walks. And people always used to come up thinking I had a baby. And they were like, oh, can I see? Oh my gosh, it's a dog. Okay. And they still thought she was cute, but they used to get a fright. They were like, they thought I had a little baby inside there. But these are the things that we do for our animals, right?
Completely. I did exactly the same when we had Jamie the Lammy, and I was pushing, because it's funny, people don't identify differently between a dog buggy and a person buggy. So they were like, oh, oh, and then all of a sudden, oh, they would think nothing of it, and all of a sudden Jamie would like go, bleh, and they'd be like, whoa. So yeah, it is amazing what people think like, isn't it?
Can you share with us sort of what the book actually entails, sort of section by section? So if somebody had to get it, or if one of the veterinary habits had to refer it to a client, what could the client expect?
So the book literally starts with my backstory and why I believe I'm so connected, which, you know, that's a hard journey in itself, really, but it's just explaining, you know, the fact that my uncle's a farmer, and so I grew up dealing with him and his farm, and actually a massive animal lover, regardless of what you think farmers should be like. They're often not. And then my early dogs, my Sooty, my Poppy. Poppy's the one that mainly features because I was older at that point to acknowledge that goodbye. And it talks about their goodbyes and how it was for me as a child and unable to control that situation. And be in charge, make decisions, at that point you're doing what you're told, sort of thing, and how I felt even back then. And then my story with Logan, my life with him, how he became so my world, how he helped me learn to be a physio, how he was part of my work, my demo dog came into Harrods with me, all the things that we did together that just made us such a cool team. He was my ring bearer at my wedding, he was there with my child, literally everything. And then it starts to talk about those moments where I started to recognize that he was getting older. And I talk about acknowledging my pre-grief, and then I acknowledge my emotional journey of dealing with his goodbye and trying to prepare for it, because it was very difficult, because obviously I had COVID as well to think about, which was a nightmare, and added its own extra spicy thoughts. But it also covers the fact that it doesn't really matter whether it was COVID or not. I buried my head in the sand because I was scared of what the answers might be. And obviously now without COVID, I wouldn't necessarily have the same worries, but I guarantee they're still there. They're just a whole different heap of them. And so, I was worried about how I was going to get the vet to come out when I wasn't really allowed. But even to this day, it's not always possible to get a vet out, even when you want to. So all those things are still really valid. And it was my exploration of trying to figure out how I was going to have that best goodbye and give him that final gift. And then, my whole journey of being organized for that. The fact that I was a proper vet hussy and like registered with everybody just to make sure I kept my options open, which I don't think is a bad thing, to be honest. And then, of course, it does talk about the actual goodbye, which obviously was an emotional roller coaster. But I also think it's nice for people to know what can come, and that it's okay to have whatever emotions you've got with that. And so it talks about my goodbye time and then how I felt afterwards. Also the fact that I had my other dog Swagger to think about, and my child, so that's all in there as well, because every kid is going to handle this differently. So it's not to say that this is how you should handle it with your kid, but this is how I handled it with my child, and what her choices were, and how she seemed to be, and my husband. And then, of course, the next day, taking him for his funeral. I put it in inverted commas just because obviously a funeral brings up lots of thoughts, but I did have an attended service, is what it was called. Didn't even know that was an option, but so proud when I found out, because it meant I could be with my dog the entire time, right until his final the part of being here. It's all explained in there, and it was a beautiful situation. But obviously, the walking around waiting for his ashes, all that jazz, because I wasn't trusting anybody with postage. And all of that's covered. And then, of course, the upcoming time, and how friends supported me, how I told my neighbors so they wouldn't disturb me, lots of stuff like that were all mentioned in there. So there's a lot of information, but a very emotional story.
What advice would you give to veterinary habbers for their clients who are preparing for the goodbye?
I would advise you do try to broach the subject, but in a really caring, huggy type way, so that you can open conversation, so that you can welcome them to have that conversation. Many people are not going to be ready, and they're going to just shut you down. and that's fine. But what you've done is you've opened a scenario and a situation where they know they can talk to you if they want to. And don't get me wrong, yeah, some of them are going to be so shut down they not want to hear it at all whatsoever. And all you can do is hope that that nugget sunk in to some degree, and obviously don't push them and don't cause offense. But I think that dropping that nugget in there and giving him a welcome space to speak is important, but not being pushy, because you can't be pushy. I love having this book on the shelf and it's just available because it means that they can see it. Even before I'd written this book, I'd actually had a few people, it was bizarre timing because I didn't want to tell them, because I hadn't told anybody at this point what my book was, but I'd had people saying, oh, are there any books out there to help with this sort of thing? I was like, well, that's weird. And I must admit, I didn't know at the time. There are some books out there like that. I didn't actually know that. But they're all different. Everybody's writing in their different ways, if you sort of mean. So, having a book available, letting them know that it's okay to talk, perhaps having some business cards for some pet grief counsellors, that's always useful. Lots of things like that, just to make sure that people feel it's a safe space to speak, because I think that's the biggest problem, is that people feel like they can't be and shouldn't be grieving a pet, which is always a word that I don't like. Yeah, I think that's the thing.
Yeah, if I think about it and I think about my experiences, I don't think we actually recognize that there is the pre-grief stage as you actually described. Like if I think back to my doggy Sushi, who I think you and I lost our dogs very similar time. And Sushi was 18. She'd also been with me for so long. Like I couldn't actually remember life without her. And she was one of those dogs, I think similar to Logan. She was by my side all the time. Like if I went to fetch the kids from school, she came in the car with me, always. If I went to the toilet, she came with me. She went everywhere with me. So it was such a void when I lost her. But it was quite a long time, actually, the pre-grief stage. And only like now, as we're talking about it, do I actually recognize that I was actually going through something and feeling something then. But I think that most people, and I think that a lot of our clients won't actually be aware that they're actually going through something. And most of the time, they just realize afterwards. So they just, it's the actual grief, not the pre-grief. It's that happens, and then they realize that they're dealing with something, and how do I deal with this? And how it is. I mean, it can just be so desperate. You just feel like I will never get over this. And I must say, for me, every single time I lose an animal, I'm like, that's it. I'm not getting another one. I can't do this again. How many times have you lost a dog when you're just like, I can't have any more dogs. That's the last dog I'm having. I just can't do this anymore. And obviously this is what our clients are also going through. So let's chat now. We've chatted a bit about the pre-grief stage. How can we support them in the grief? Because that's just so real and so hard. And I think it depends on what type of person you are. So a lot of us, I think a lot of us are quite empathetic, and we're the type of people that do connect with other people, but some of us aren't. Some of us don't deal with crying people and grieving people that well. We don't really know what to do. We just don't know what to say, don't know what to do. So what advice could you give?
I think I do agree. It's really, really hard because you are trying to read that situation, and and you are from the pre-grief situation to the grief situation is relatively similar. I'm just going to go back to that again, because there was, like, I've had situations where people have started crying in front of me, and it's not because they're grieving; they are in pre-grief, and I've simply said, look, I think you're pre-grieving, and I've literally outed them. And then it's not necessarily, often they'll just stare at you like blank because they don't get it, and then you talk about it, and the next time you see them, they're ready to acknowledge it, and then they say, my God, Donna, I really wish I just had no idea. I wish I realized. I didn't know, and thank you so much. I've been thanked for pointing that out. But those, I wouldn't do that to somebody who genuinely look when they burst into tears. I think at that point it's okay to say that. And then obviously from a grief point of view as well, actually most of the time they're not with you because the animal's gone at the vets or at home. You don't actually end up seeing them again, and that's actually really hard because you also grieve the client as well, because often you're losing them as well. And so that's really hard because they might be friends you've had for years, because your clients do become connected, they do become friends. And so that's really hard, but you do then have to click over to I'm your friend now. That's my opinion. I know loads of people will be like, you can't be friends with your clients, blah blah blah. But I don't think that that's right. I think you have to just recognize that people need what they need when they need it. And for me, if I do see them, because some of them do want to come in and just have a chat and a hug, and and I will see them, and then we'll do that, and just have a chat and a debrief, if you like. Some of them want a phone call, and I always make sure that I'm there for a phone call. And I don't mean they've asked for the phone call. I mean, I've offered it and they have accepted. Some of them just want messages because they can't handle phone calls, and that's fine too. And I always check in, always, without fail. I will send messages, usually a couple of days later, and then a few more days after that, and then it'll slowly spread, just making sure that they're okay. But I do bounce off their vibe. If they're not chatting and they're like, yeah, I'm fine, it's like, okay, then that's kind of me shut down, in which case there's nothing more I can do. But if they are still really chatting and they're saying how sad they are and they're really struggling, then I will keep checking in until they're sounding better. And and I will usually send them a personal gift of some sort, just to an appropriate one, just to obviously help them as well and help them with their memory making. But I think a lot of dealing with grief is about how you deal with the before bit. I think that if the before bit's okay, then you can just about cope. I think that the people that struggle the most are the ones who don't have the opportunity, because it's a real privilege to be able to say goodbye how you want it, and I accept that, and I know that not everybody will get that privilege. But if you do have that opportunity, it will really help you with your grief, and I think that's all part of that conversation, if you can. But it is a difficult conversation, there's no question about it, and there's no right or wrong answer either. I'm not a trained counsellor, none of us are. I would suggest, actually, one thing that's probably wise to know is that there is bereavement counselling services, CPDs, out there for people that work in the pet industry, and I would strongly recommend someone did them, because I've done one and it was really fascinating and really important. I mean, I did it many years ago, I'm sure I could probably update it, but doing bereavement counselling CPD would be a massive high on the list.
Yeah, I think we actually have something in the Onlinepethealth platform about that, just helping people how to deal with that. And like I said, because some people it comes easier and other people it doesn't. But one of the things you said is, allowing them to be able to plan for it. And if I'm sure your book has loads of suggestions about that. One of the things you and I were chatting about earlier before we started the podcast was Silver and our pony. And we actually were home leasing him, which means that we didn't actually own him, but it was like we owned him. So when you home lease, you have the pony, he's sort of yours, you pay for everything, but somebody else actually officially owns him. And the people that owned him now have asked they'd like to get his blankets and all his things back. And I was saying to Donna that I was like, okay, but I could feel something in me that was like, actually, no, I don't. And then I actually texted straight back and I said, well, I'm going to be honest, I actually don't want you to take the things away. I know you need to, and I know you want to, but I just need you to know that it actually doesn't feel really comfortable for me right now. Like that feels quite scary for me. And actually I feel I have a better feeling with his blanket hanging up on the rack and his head collar and all his things, even though we're not using them, and we never will on any other pony. But I just feel it makes me feel closer to him, that they're still there. And these are the things, like, I think is that where we can actually really help owners to prepare them, especially if they're aware of it in the pre-grief stage, to say these are the things that are going to happen. You might not want to pack the bed away, and that's okay. Removing those kind of things might be something that will trigger you. And so just preparing people for that, because like you only realize things as they happen.
Absolutely.
Right. But if I'd actually had a bit of preparation, I might be like, okay, but I actually had a panic yesterday. It actually was like a panicked feeling. All the emotion came back. I was like, oh my gosh, they're taking all Silver's things like away from me. They're taking him away from me. Like that's all I have of him left. I won't have anything. And they actually texted back and said, The owner actually takes it back, said, I completely understand. And that's why I need the things, because that's the only connection that I have to him, and so I completely understand from her side. And they're the owners, so they obviously get to do. Maybe they'll let me keep one thing. So then I've just got one thing of hers.
I certainly hope so. And, because I hear you wholly and completely. And I think this is the thing why we have to recognize that we're not alone in this journey. And that's why it's such a big thing, because we're all going through the same thing. But I bet you end up telling yourself off, going like, oh, why am I being so crazy? It's just stuff or whatever. And you shouldn't have to justify it in your head, because we all do the same. Logan's collar and lead still, well, his collar is actually on his own. His lead is still on the hook with the other dog's leads. I don't use it. It's his lead. It'll always be his lead. It's not for anybody else's use, but it still sits there. His coat is still on there. Okay, Bonnie gets to use that one every now and then, but I know it's his. And I haven't even been able to change its size, and I really need to, because it doesn't really fit Bonnie. But I'm just like, no, Logan will let you borrow that, but it's still Logan's. And we still got dog bed in the house, and okay, again, the other dog can use it, that's absolutely fine, but I know it's Logan's bed, and actually it's a mess. It probably needs to go in the bin. It stinks, but I just don't care, because it's his bed, and I cannot, even after all these years, I cannot bring myself to chuck it, even though it's ripped, it's got holes in it, it's completely done, it's long gone. And there's a load of other beds in the house. It's not the only one. There's tons of beds. We've always had loads of beds everywhere, but the one that was like Logan's original bed, it's like your favorite pair of jeans, it just never goes, even if you don't wear them anymore because they don't fit, you just have them. So I do feel sometimes my house is a bit of a shrine, but I'm like, don't care, carry on.
If you think about it, I mean, it's the same with people. If you think like when somebody passes and then you have to pack all their things away, it's so hard for the family members and everything to do that. I suppose luckily with animals, I suppose horses do have quite a bit, but they don't have so many things, that you have to pack away. They don't own so many things, whereas with a person can take up rooms.
I was just going to say, I actually would argue that maybe there is a slight difference. I haven't gone through a real, I've lost a lot of people in my time, but not necessarily like, not like a parent or something like that. The only reason why I was just thinking, I don't know, is just because, like you say, people have got so much stuff that you kind of have to go down that road. You're forced to go down that road. And then once you've started, well, then you just keep going, don't you? Yeah. But with animals, I think because there isn't that much stuff, I almost wonder if it's a little bit harder, because you're like, well, I don't need that corner. That corner isn't any extra to my life. So I just leave that corner as, dog corner, that's fine. And so that's why I just, I don't know. I mean, maybe that'll be another book, another time when I lose a person. I don't know. It's an interesting thought though, isn't it?
Let's chat about writing books, because obviously this is something that came to you really quickly. And I'm guessing that when you started writing things down, you weren't thinking, I'm going to write a book. But before that, did you have a thought like, one day I'd like to be an author?
God, that's a really that sentence just hit me there. No, at no point did I ever think I would like to be an author. I did have thoughts of, that'd be cool to write a book, but that's because I kind of think everything is cool. So I have a very long list of things that are always on my to-do list, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're ever going to make it to the top. And I wouldn't say a book was particularly near the top. I mean, had it have been, I probably would have done it a long time ago. But that, so it wasn't something I hadn't had in my mind. But when this hit me, I didn't know how else to deal with it, so this had to come out. And it's funny, really, because I wonder if actual authors, I am an author, but
you are an author.
That's so weird to say. I wonder, and people actually choose to write books for a living. I wonder if they have that gurgling feeling, and that's how and why they write. I don't know. This is a very first time thing for me, but I am really chuffed I did it.
So what are the biggest challenges about writing the book? Because I think you can divide it up. So first of all was writing the book, then I guess trying to find a publisher, and now it's selling the book.
Do you know, you've hit all the sort of markers on the head right there, but I would say, there's definitely issues within that, because it probably depends on what your book is. So for example, one of my the challenges for me to get through this book was to write and not cry all over my computer. That was quite a challenge. So that was hard. And I knew that I was crying because it was my story. I didn't know how much impact I was going to have on other people. That is something I've later learned and had to deal with, because so many people have been crying at me in a good way. Like they've all said it's a good thing, but I had no idea. So that being able to create that much emotion has been a real, that's hit my heart, really has hit my heart. And so that's been amazing. But added to my emotional roller coaster is where I'm going with that. But writing the book, yes, that kind of all fell out. If I say, to be honest, it's like verbal vomit, if anything. And I didn't want it to be edited anyway. And I suppose those are the thoughts. So when you write a book, people are, you've got to edit it, you've got to get a proofreader, you've got to do, okay, proofreading, fine, because I can tell you now you've got 14,000 tons of typos and you cannot find it yourself. So there's a challenge, just having to read it 900 times. It's the most emotional thing ever. And I have to read it 900 times and I'm crying every single time. That is not easy to deal with. But if your book isn't one that's going to make you cry, then you don't have to worry about that. Editing wise, if you were writing a textbook, for example, I'm sure you'll need an editor. But for me, I was writing from my heart and soul. I didn't want anybody to edit it because this was my words and my diary and me. And I was very, very adamant about that, which was good that I was able to be that strong. So I think for somebody else, they'd have to remember to think about what they want from that book, because I suppose I have to also reflect and think that maybe some people need the editing. I don't know. I've clearly not needed it because everybody's been really thrilled about what's come out. But I just wanted it to really be me, authentically me, and I couldn't imagine anything else. So I didn't let an editor anywhere near it. So I'm proud of that, but I had the strength to do that, is what I mean. Then once I decided it was going to be a book, I had to get over the emotional bearing my bum in public bit and go for it. But I very much did that in stages of step by step. So I didn't really necessarily think too hard about that at this stage. At this stage, I thought, how am I going to get this out there? So I sent it to publishers and, all of them said yes, which was amazing. But I had to make my decision on what I wanted to do regarding publishing. And in the end, I found a lady who, oh my God, she was so amazing. She was a consultant and she sent it to this place for this bit, this place for that bit, this place for this bit, because you have to have your cover done, your blurb done, your typesetting, which, because that never even occurred to me. You got to have your words in the middle of the page and actually got to be slightly off the middle so that it doesn't hit the spine and stuff like that. I was like, never even crossed my mind that you'd have to do that. And then finding a printer and stuff like that. But also, I mean, the biggest tip I've got for anybody is talk to all the authors that you know and can find. Just if you don't know any, just reach out on local Facebook pages or whatever, because I can tell you now that they are a wealth of information, and I had so much support from other local authors. And they all told me different things. I learned so much from all of them. And I'm so glad I spoke to so many of them, because had I not have done, I wouldn't have all the information that I had and, made the decisions and choices that I went with. So that was really helpful. And, just definitely reach out, because I think it's quite a lot of people that have written books. But actually, the statistic I learned on one of the CPD things I was listening to on how to publish a book, they were saying that apparently 80% of the public think they've got a book in them, but only 0.06% of those people actually ever publish. And I was like, whoa. So now I'm very proud to be such, part of such a small, tiny percentage. But, when you realize that statistic, you're like, okay, this is a journey and a half. And there are some authors out there who've not gone and got any support and help. So they've not got so much information because they haven't necessarily learned loads either. But yeah, just keep looking and asking and all that jazz. And then after that, it's just time. It all takes ages, and I'm not very good at time. I'm like, come on now. So that's frustrating. And I can tell you it takes like about 6 to 8 weeks to get your proofread back. And when it's an emotional book like that, it takes even longer because they're crying and then they message you to say, I'm so sorry, I'm crying a lot. So that's quite hard. and then, you know, I went to go and see my book being printed, and I was so proud of that. That was so cool. That obviously added some time delay because I wanted to make sure that it was when I could go. But that's fine. And the printers were so kind. And I would strongly recommend that anybody who does it goes and sees their book being printed, because it's the coolest thing ever. And then it's, yeah, after that it arrives, but it's then the marketing. So the marketing is a challenge in itself. It's different to the marketing I've done for the physio. Slight issue that is a lovely issue to have. I sort of thought I was marketing the book. Turns out it was marketing me. So I've ended up with loads more clients as well, which I hadn't expected, because I just, I thought I was marketing the book. So that's been a challenge, because I've obviously now got to fit more clients in and still find time to market the book, which is quite tough.
Good problem to have.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel really bad about saying that as a problem. It's just, it's an awkward juggle. And so that was definitely a thing. And then, I've had to do stuff that's different to my normal, and I have to say this subject's tough. So when you're standing in a shop doing a book launch and you're trying to give them a book that's going to make them cry, that takes some hard navigations, let's say. You can't do a hard sell on that. So that's been hard. Collaboration, my God, that is key to everything. So I've collaborated obviously with the other authors that have helped me, but also, collaborated with pet shops to get my book out there, and I'm collaborating with other businesses so I can, get a presence at Crufts without having to pay for a whole stand and all that sort of thing. So ton of collaboration, ton of reaching out, ton of article writing, ton of, you've got to edit it slightly. You can't be the same for this newspaper as that newspaper, nor would you want it to be, and all that jazz. And then of course the newspapers get it wrong sometimes as well, which is very frustrating. So yeah, there's been tons to do from that point of view, and adding it to the website, learning how to put e-commerce on the website. Yes, Amazon. All those things have also been, a nightmare. Yeah, learning TikTok. I've been made to do things that I didn't want to do. I did not want to be on TikTok, but now I've got to be, because apparently that's a good place for selling books. So I'm like, yeah, so it's a lot of learning going on. Hell of a lot of learning really quickly.
How many books have you sold through TikTok? Do you know?
Oh God, none through TikTok yet. I'm still on my learning curve. So I have only just finished, and I say finished in a loosest term, setting up the TikTok account properly, because they have all these security stuff to go through, and I've got a different married name to my work name, and so that really didn't help with their verification process. And I've still got to add when my company was formed and all that jazz. So you've got to jump through hoops for them. So so no, I can't tell you that TikTok's an amazing platform in any way, shape,
Not working yet,
but I just know that I'm supposed to be there. So so it's something that I'm having to try to navigate. But it's like with social media, it's constantly doing reels and God knows what. So yeah, it's not my fun happy place. That's not my happy place.
Well, Donna, I just want to say I'm so proud of you, and your clients is right. You are amazing, because if there's something that can be done, like, oh, someone can do this, Donna would be the person who can do it. Like, even if someone said no one can do this, Donna would be the person who could do it. So you amaze me too. So not just your clients. So congratulations on your book. I'm so proud of you. And I do think you have another book in you. So I, without a doubt, know there is another book, and you will be a serial author, I believe. So I know you think you just written one now, so you're not an author, but you are an author. And hopefully you can potentially make an income through your audiobooks, and you make and write many more. So thanks so much for sharing your journey with us. If somebody wants to get hold of your books, if they want to refer clients to purchase your book, where would they go?
Oh, it's super easy, because it is on Waterstones, it is on Amazon, it is on Thrift in America. Well, that's everywhere. It's loads of places, so you can just Google it and you can find it. And also it is on my website as well. So if you do want a signed copy, because my copies are lovely, then you can go straight to my website, which is Animal Physiotherapy, and then The Best Goodbye in it, and it'll come up. But honestly, if you just Google it, it's there. So I'm quite proud of that.
Yeah, and we will put the links to Donna's website in the show notes. So it's The Best Goodbye by Donna Wills. So thanks for your time, Donna. It's been amazing chatting.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Take care. Bye-bye. If you enjoyed this podcast, please hit the subscribe button so you get notified every time I load a new podcast. I'm here every week talking to vet rehab therapists from all over the world about all things vet rehab. A big thanks to our sponsor, Curacao Vet. Their sponsorship allows us to be able to give this podcast to you for free, so please go and check them out at curacao.org. Please also don't forget to bookmark the next Vet Rehab Summit. It's on Saturday the 8th of November in 2025. Come and be a part of the world's largest online veterinary rehabilitation conference created specifically for you, the vet rehabber community. Online Pet Health members, you get VIP complimentary access to the Vet Rehab Summit. For more information about continuing education for vet rehabbers, you can go to onlinepethealth.com.